Welcome back, guys, and welcome to another episode of Dollars with Decker, where you guys know we strip away the fluff and get right into the numbers and see what our guests actually invest in. Now, today's guest, according to ChatGPT, is the most famous real estate investor in the world, but more importantly, he is one of my absolute best friends. Tarek El Moussa, you guys have seen him everywhere. He's the star of HGTV's hit show, Flip or Flop, Flipping 101, and he has a new show that's set to air in January, which is by far the most talked about new show in Hollywood, called The Flip Off, where he stars with his ex-wife, Christina, to see who's going to be the flipping champion of the world. Now, this guy has flipped over 1,000 properties and currently has over 9 figures in commercial real estate holdings. Now, he's so much more than just a TV realtor. His ventures include owning self-storage facilities, apartment buildings, a thriving wholesale real estate company, and a production company. He also manages a massive rental portfolio with over 200 properties. Now, guys, this is one I'm so excited for you guys to hear because Tarek flew all the way in just to sit down with you guys, and you guys are gonna get to see the real Tarek, the guy that I know and love, and he's going to be dropping some absolute gems for you today in this unfiltered episode. So get ready to take some notes and let's dive in. Well, I have my boy Tarek El Moussa sitting in front of me. He flew all the way in today to sit down with me. Thanks so much for coming out, brother.
Of course, man. So excited to be here.
Yeah, so I know with you, a lot of people, don't really know the true story of how you ended up getting your show. And I remember when me and you, this was probably about 4 years ago, you told me the story, and I know I always thought like, oh, he must have knew somebody or did something. And then you told me the story, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So like, why don't you fill people in? Because probably the craziest story I've ever heard of somebody getting on TV.
It is wild. So, man, cart before the horse. It was a wild idea. And actually, I went to a real estate convention, and I met a guy at this convention who was on stage talking about how he made $800,000 a year. Yeah. And he was selling houses, and this was like 2010. And I was like, $800,000 a year. So like, I got to talk to this guy. So I was talking to him, and it turned out he had a local TV show. And then I was like, well, what does that do? He's like, well, then people recognize me. I was like, well, what does that do? And he's like, well, then they do business with me. And I was like, oh shit, so you use it for like farming, like a realtor. I was a realtor, right? Yeah. And then I was like, oh man, that's so smart. So I went home, and I was talking to my ex-wife, Christina. She was trying to go to bed, and I was like, we got to get a TV show. This guy's got a TV show. He's making $800,000 a year. And she's laughing at me like, what's wrong with you? A TV show about what? And I was like, well, I don't know. And I was like, hold on a second. Squirrel, ADD. I was real fast. And like literally 3 seconds later, I blurted out, we just bought our first flip. Why don't we flip houses on TV? We'll call it Flip or Flop. Flip if we make it, flop if we don't. She laughed at me, went upstairs, went to bed, called me crazy, and guess what? It worked.
Yeah.
But the problem was trying to film a house flipping TV show without knowing how to flip houses and not having any money. Now that's the problem.
Yeah, I remember you telling me, I was like, well, bro, where'd you get the money to flip that? You're like, I had no money. I had no money at all. I was like, well, how do you buy houses where you have no money? You're like, that's the problem I faced.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about life. And that's what I tell people. Like, listen, I'm not super educated. I don't have any fancy degrees. I just know what I want, I go for it, and I go for broke. And the truth is, nobody knows what they're doing. Yeah. You just have to chase your dreams. And for me, TV, what did I know about TV? Absolutely nothing. And it sounds like a big challenging thing. Here's the secret. You want to know what I did, Brian?
What?
I went on this thing called the internet. And they have this thing called Google, right? And I typed Hollywood production companies. That's it, bro. Everybody likes to overcomplicate,
Yeah.
It's A, B, C, D. You go for broke every day, and you just got to try.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, we were just in my office, and we were talking, and I know even for myself, right? Like, I always try to bring investment opportunities to everybody else, and one of the things that you were explaining to me was when you buy real estate, right? Everyone kind of knows, like, how to buy a house, right? And the way you explain to me now you've built your fund up, and you've had so many multifamilies, and it sounds a lot the same or almost easier to a certain degree buying some of these multifamilies on what you're doing now that you have that experience. For the average person, if they have $100,000, it's way easier for them to invest with you doing all that work than going out and buying an investment property.
100%. And here's what happens, right? Most people, they want to invest in real estate. And most people that can invest in real estate want to invest in real estate, but many times they don't. And they don't because they're scared, or they don't because they don't know what to buy. And then if they do buy, they become a property manager, and they're changing toilets, and they're taking all these terrible calls. And I'm like, no, do not do that, right? Because you don't become a real estate investor to be a property manager, right? So I think what really prevents a lot of people from investing, and I hate to say it, is ego.
Yeah.
Because many times, the smarter you are, the worse it is.
Yep.
Because they're thinking, there's no way he's going to find a better deal than me. But the truth is, of course I am. I've been doing this for 20 years. So that's why syndications are amazing, right? So like I started off just selling houses. Then I started flipping houses. Then I started buying rentals. And then when my TV shows got really popular, people would come up to me all the time. They're like, hey, Tarek, we want to buy deals with you. We want to invest with you. Mm-hmm. And then I honestly, I just never had a way because I wasn't going to raise capital to go to flip a house.
Yeah.
So 9 years ago, I bought my first commercial project. We paid 4.9 for it. Got in with the SBA loan, only $500,000 down. We just refinanced last year, and the appraisal came in at $13.5 million. Yeah, I mean, talk about the power of commercial real estate. So
your $500,000 down payment ended up earning you what, $8.5 million in equity.
Yeah,
that is a 12. What is that? Almost a 9%, 9x, 900%. Let alone all the write-offs you got on depreciation and everything else.
Yeah, and the truth is, people just need to try. Like I got an SBA loan in California, which required 10% down. Most people don't even know you can get a building for only 10% down. Yeah. So that's why I always go back to trying. When people have ideas, they need to actually try these ideas instead of just think about these ideas.
And that's one of the things I will say. I mean, over our friendship, when we sit down, I will get an idea to a certain point, and then I call you in, like we just did in there. I whiteboard it out, and I say, hey, here's all the ideas I have. I've gotten them all to this point. What do we do in the next step? And I think one of the things that you've done so well at, you never let perfect get in the way of good. You just like, hey, I have this idea. It's a good idea. I'm just going to go for it, and I'm going to fail forward.
100%. Always just going for it. And that's how I ended up with this commercial real estate investment company, right? And I launched it, about almost 5 years ago now. Wow. And with the opportunity that's coming, we are getting geared up. As I told you, we're actually announcing our new distressed multifamily fund next week.
Yeah.
And the goal of that's really, really simple. We are going to look for the most distressed apartment deals across the country so we can take advantage of the distress that's coming. Because all of these operators that bought these buildings with 2.5%, 3%, 4% interest rates, they're adjusting. And when those things adjust, one of two things are going to happen. One, it's going to go back to the bank, or two, they have to write a check for millions and millions of dollars. Yep. And for many operators, as you know, they're not going to have the millions of dollars. So that's where we come in. And that's why I'm excited we're going to be working on this together too.
And I think, so for those of you guys that kind of don't understand exactly, so let me kind of break this down. So you're used to getting a real estate mortgage on your property, which is a 30-year fixed. Well, when you get into the world of commercial real estate, it is the way kind of like how Canadian loans work. You can't have a fixed term for more than 5 years or 10 years. So even though you're financing this for 20, 25, 30 years, or whatever you're financing, they're only allowing you to fix for a certain portion of time. And then what happens is, once that fixed term gets done, you've got to go back to the bank to refinance. And what happens is, when you go back to the bank and refinance, your mortgage payment, let's say, was $100,000 a month at a 3% rate. Well, today's rates are now 6%. So now you have a $200,000 mortgage payment. So guess what? When you originally got that loan, you qualified on the rents, because it's when you buy commercial real estate, you don't qualify on your personal credit. It's what that income, it's an asset, like a business. Well, guess what? Unless your rent rolls doubled in 5 years, which guess what? They haven't for most people, because most owner-operators that do that, they don't raise the rents as nearly what they wanted that they should, and they're not keeping those properties up and renovating them. So then what they have to do is say, oh, that's great. You have a $20 million loan. The property's worth $40 million. For you to refinance this, you got to come in with $5 million. Well, who has an extra $5 million right now? And that's where your fund comes in and basically is buying those at that point. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So since 2010, I've flipped almost 1,000 houses. Yeah, it's a ton of houses, man. And then when you're flipping houses, what are you doing? You're buying the asset, you're getting short-term debt, which in this case would be a hard money loan. So you're paying a higher interest rate, call it 8%, 9%, while you fix up the house, you list it and sell it. And in the end, you might have had that loan for 6 to 9 months, right? It's the exact same thing in a sense when it comes to multifamily, because when you're looking at value-add multifamily, which is multifamily where it needs some added value, it might be in a little bit of rough shape, you're not going to go in there with an A++ loan. You're going to get a short-term loan. So what happened was 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, even today, people are buying these fixer-upper buildings, right? And they're getting short-term debt. The reason they're getting short-term debt is because that loan is in place while they're doing the remodeling, right? But when that remodeling's done, that's when you refinance into long-term debt. What's happening is the short-term debt's running out and there's no long-term debt to refinance into unless you're writing a big check for millions of dollars.
Gotcha.
So if they don't have the millions of dollars, it is going back to the bank. And that's where we come in.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if they got short-term debt to be able to do that refinance, they've just bled all their capital on doing that refinance. They have no capital to put that down. So many times you can get a property that's 80% on its way to being renovated. They ran out of the money. The bank takes over it. They've already done a good amount of the work, or they've done it on 20 or 30% of the units. You come in, then you get a clean house, because what you do is you come in, finish that value add, and let's say that building was $15 million and you were able to raise the rent rolls as well as do all of the other things. What people don't understand is if you put money into a kitchen, it's not, they don't go in and value it and be like, oh, this unit's worth $60,000 as a remodel. It's what is this thing rent for? And oh, guess what? And what is the income on this property? And then they give you a multiplier called your cap rate, right? So if it's a 5 cap rate, you're taking your income and you're multiplying that by 20, and that's what the value is. So you can actually go in and immediately, in some cases, for what you buy it for, do the value add. Say you're in it for 15, you do 4 million in renovations, you may get $26 million on that value, pull out 70 or 80% loan to value, and be able to go ahead and replenish all the capital to a certain degree after a period of time.
And do it again, but you said it right, because when it comes to houses, you put in a brand new kitchen, brand new bathroom, that's the value. When you put a brand new kitchens, brand new bathrooms in 200, 300, 400 apartments, well, the value's there, but that's not how it's calculated. The value's there because now it's a nicer unit, which means you have higher rent, right?
Yep.
So at the end of the day, if we can bring more cash flow, a higher net operating income, we have a higher value for the building.
And I think one of the things, we'll kind of get into the economic cycles of it, because I think a lot of people, I'm of the believer where when it comes to single family residences, you get valued based on comparables, right? And those comparables are done on the sales comparison approach. What did the most 4 or 5 recent homes sell for? Where now that can give you exposure in a declining market, less people move, this and that. But when you enter into any type of recessionary environment, guess what? People still need places to rent, and it doesn't matter what other comps sold for multifamily. It's what is the income being generated on that property. So, I mean, what are your thoughts? Because I know you've done single family homes, you've done storage units, and now I know just from knowing you, multifamily is your kind of ticket. Is it because you kind of, it's insulated from a recessionary environment because some of the rent rolls and things like that?
You know, to be quite honest, I don't think anything's really insulated, right? But I can tell you this, my biggest mistakes as a real estate investor have come from fear. And that fear was really come from trying to be smarter than the market. So let me explain what that means. So I'm going to tell you about some of my big mistakes as an investor.
Yeah.
Always trying to time the market. It does not work. Very simple. Here's 2 reasons why. 1, it's impossible. 2, if somehow you got really lucky and you timed it, you only have so much opportunity for buying. So the question is, if I bought a home run deal in 2024 and I sat on the sidelines for 5 years, is that better 10 or 15 years from now? Or is it better to buy a deal every single year, whether the prices are going up and down, or up or down 10 years from now?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Because you make appreciation on your portfolio. So 10 years down the road, do you want to make a 15% return on $1 million, or do you want to make a 15% return on $100 million?
Or even a 10% return on $100 million.
Exactly.
You can get a lower return and still end up with a much higher net worth.
Exactly. Like if you look at 2021, 2022, for example, like if someone had a $50 million portfolio, they made $10 million in equity doing nothing. Yeah. And that's why I'm a big believer in always buying real estate. Now, we're going after distressed assets. Does that mean I'm still not buying base hits and doubles and triples? No, absolutely. We are buying those, but we're really excited for the juicy deals.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are going to come from these adjusting loans.
Yeah, and I think for most people don't understand is that opportunity comes around Very rarely, because what you have to happen for that to occur is you need interest rates to have increased very rapidly over a very short period of time. Because if interest rates are just going up like 0.25% or 0.5% per year, well, guess what? That guy who's 5-year, 7-year loans done, he's going from 3.5% to 5%. Well, if his rents went up 3 or 4%, maybe he's only coming in with a couple $100,000 and he's good. But we just had the fastest increase in interest rates in history, and it outpaced that of what rents went up. So now people, even if, and we also saw vacancies go up from a lot of these things too. So you have this perfect little window, and that window opportunity, I mean, yeah, it'll always be there, but really you're going to have like a 2-year, 3-year home run window where these guys that have these adjustable rate loans can't cover that double difference on that interest rate, and they have no choice but to sell.
100%. And I know there's people listening to this right now, and they're thinking, oh, well, the banks are modifying. The distress isn't that bad. So let me just be clear what we're looking for. We're looking for a needle in a haystack. And guess what we're really good at? We're good at looking for needles in haystacks, because that's what I do with houses.
Yeah.
Right? So...
And two, you have an opportunity. I mean, you and I have, I don't even know, we spent countless hours together, and we'll go places. And I'll never forget, we went into the Global Ambassador the last time we were here, right? And one thing I've always appreciated about you is you are extremely humble. You will never, ever go somewhere and be like, hey, it's me and Heather here. Where's our table? That's like absolutely not what you're doing. So we're standing outside and we're like waiting in line patiently.
Yeah. There's like 400 people in line to get into that. I'm like, Ryan, where are we? What is this place?
So we're just waiting in line. And so these, like the manager and a girl comes over and they were like, Tarek, are you wanting to come in? We're like, yeah, we'd like to come in. Well, why are you waiting in line, right? And so what I realized is because you have built such a big brand on television, people will actually bring deals to you or be willing to give you a better deal to just have the connection with you, and that opportunity you're able to pass on to other people that invest with you.
And that is literally the number one reason why people invest with me. I get them access to deals that they'd never get, right? Because I've been on TV for so long, my name and my brand opens up doors. And sometimes, not all the time, people are excited to connect with me and my wife, and they like to share opportunities. So, and now the truth is, I don't have $100 zillion, and I'm not Warren Buffett. So I have these amazing deals, but I don't have all the money to buy them, and that's where the partners come in.
Yeah, and kind of getting into the deals, one thing I always like to ask people, and I think is, what would you say is the absolute worst real estate deal that you've ever invested in, and what went wrong?
Oh my gosh, I love this story. I'm going to tell you about the deal that I thought was going to ruin my life. No, I'm serious. Like crying in the corner when I was 26 years old. Terrible. So I got into real estate in 2003. And I remember when I first got into real estate, the rates had just dropped to like 6%. Everybody was freaking out about how low they were. I was like, anyways, and the purchase prices were like $300,000 in Orange County. So every day I'd look on the MLS and the prices were going up, and the buzz started, and it was the upswing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't buy any investments because I was like, well, I'm not going to buy it. 2 months ago, the same model sold for $50,000 less. And it kept going up and up and up. And I was going to be smarter than the market and wait for the prices to drop. So here's what I did. Genius. I waited till 2006 and realized, well, they just doubled in front of me.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to drop. Right? So in 2006, I'm like, that's it. I'm going to buy my first investment. So I bought a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home, Charlotte, North Carolina, new construction, 2,200 square feet. I paid $160,000 for it. It was renting for $1,250 a month. I was like, you can't, it's literally impossible to lose on this, right? I mean, you can't even build it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you can lose. Watch this. So this was 2006. By the beginning of 2008, that house that I bought for $160 was worth $80.
Oh my God.
That house that was renting for $1,250 was renting for $950. Oh, so now I'm writing a check every month, and then the tenants aren't paying. So I remember having one of those defining moments, like, what am I going to do here? And I was thinking I can collect rent and just not make my payment like everybody else. I can short sell, I can foreclose. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going to ruin my credit. I had never missed a payment in my life. I'm going to see what happens. And here's what happened to this worst deal of my life. Today, 2024, it's worth about $375,000.
So you kept it.
I kept it.
Yeah.
That house that was renting for $1,250, that dropped to $950. I just leased it out for $2,200. You want to know what's still the same?
Here.
My payment. My payment. And that, my friend, is the power of real estate. And people just don't understand how powerful it is. Because the worst buy today is a home run one day.
Yeah.
You just got to wait it out.
Yeah, and I think that's the beautiful part. And you know, when you make a bad real estate investment, as long as it's like a longer term rental and you have income coming in, you can kind of wait it out. And that's really one of the only investments you can really do outside of that. Now, when it comes to flipping houses, now I know most
that's
people.
different, Brian.
Yeah, I was gonna say when it comes to flipping houses, because I know it's a lot harder. When it comes to flipping houses, what are the things that have, for lack of a better word, really screwed you over when you were looking at a property that you now know, when I'm going to flip a house, I'm double checking these things?
Oh my gosh. Other states, flood zones. That's one. In California, it's always the same. You know, we're looking at foundation and structure and mold and asbestos and things like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, for house flipping, it's been very, very strong a very long time, except 2022 and the first half of 2023. And honestly, you know me, bro.
Yeah.
I'm a transparent,
Yeah.
and I think it's important to tell people the truth.
Yeah.
So, as you know, what happened to me in first quarter of 2022, because the rates doubled in 22, right?
Yep.
First quarter in 2022, I bought 91 California flips to flip them. I didn't wholesale. I bought them. I had mortgages of $600,000 a month plus marketing budget of $500,000. So my overhead, everything was like almost $1.5 million a month just to run this thing. And then the rates doubled. So if I didn't do what I did, I'd be toast.
Yeah.
So literally the day the interest rate doubled, I canceled all buys and overnight rebuilt the company into a wholesale company. So for the next year, I was getting my butt kicked and losing on those flips, but I was offsetting those losses by wholesaling distressed real estate. So in the end, it all washed out. But there were homes I was flipping, losing 300 or 400 or 500 grand on one house.
I remember we were at dinner and you were just like, oh, it's only a couple more months. The good news is the wholesaling company's making money, but I don't see any of it. It's just all that is just going into the other company's bank account. You know, and I think it's important because I think what a lot of people don't realize, specifically when they see you guys on TV, is they think, one, you guys get these magical deals that nobody gets, which is not the truth. You guys buy them like normal people buy them, right? And you still have to make the money to pay your bills. It's not like you get all this money and this magic fund that you can just screw up and then network just foots the bill. Like it is your business that you won, and I've watched those days when we've been out to dinner and we go outside, we're like, oh, we're getting our butt kicked today, bro.
Yeah.
You know?
And the whole industry is, you know, I don't give a shit what anybody says. Anyone in real estate, loans, commercial, everybody has been feeling it because the truth is we have been in a recession for our industry for, you know, about 2 years now.
Yeah.
Like we really, really have. But here's the thing. That's why now is the time. Yeah. Because the prices are low. The last building I bought in Texas, the last owner paid $105,000 per door, and there's 405 doors. We paid $66,000.
Jeez.
So these are the deals I've been waiting for. So for the last 2 years, we've been in so much pain, right?
Yep.
The pain is finally letting off, and now the opportunity's here.
Yep. And I think the key that most people don't realize is we know that the Fed's going to start cutting rates, right? And the problem is what most people have been doing is waiting for interest rates to drop. But what happens is it's not like the Fed comes out on September, whatever it is, 15th or 16th, and they cut rates. They're like, hey, mortgage rates are going from 6% to 3%. It takes a little bit of a time for that to kind of flow into it. So the fact is the pain isn't going to go away immediately, which means the deals are going to present themselves. But 24 months from now, if we go into a recessionary environment even further, and you have those rates at being at 3%, well, guess what? People buy based on payment. They do not buy based on purchase price. You'd be willing to pay $100 million for a property if it's at a 3% interest rate versus you're fighting every tooth and nail to try to get it down to 60 million when it's a 7% interest rate. It's all about cash flow.
100%. And then what's really different about today versus the Great Recession is what actually caused all of this to happen, right? Yeah. So if you look at the Great Recession, there was literally nothing the government could do because there was no equity in the deals. They were giving away houses with zero down to people with no jobs. Like you can't fix that, right? Yep. What's different about this recession we're in for our industry is it is forced by the government.
Yes.
So the crazy thing is this, literally at any given time, they can get us out of it.
Yep.
They can literally drop the rates tomorrow to 2.5% and we're all saved, right? But the question I ask myself is this: what is more likely to happen? 2.5%, 3% interest rates, or a drop in prices?
Yeah.
In my opinion, we're due for a drop in prices because it's unaffordable to live in this country today. We've been in an appreciating market for 14 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And if they did drop to 2.5%, 3%, that means we have another 10 years of appreciation, which would break every record in U.S. history.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. And the fact is when it comes to economic cycles, I mean, you know me, I obsess over this stuff. And so what basically I look at is the Fed has to bring interest rates down because the Fed prints a bunch of money and they got to pay interest at whatever the interest rate is. But they can't slam interest rates down to 2 to 3% because then what ends up happening is you get inflation that peaks up what they just worked 2.5 years to get under control. And the Fed has a dual mandate. Number one, the most important thing is maximum employment. That's what the Fed mandate. Number two is stable consumer prices, right? So we've seen unemployment tick up a little bit. So they're going to have to put a little bit of stimulus in the economy. But the last thing that they're going to be doing is slamming rates down to 2%. The balance of inflation will come just normal cycles. Hey, guess what? Prices need to come down a little bit. And they already are in markets that have a lot of new construction. And they're holding up in certain markets where there's not a lot of new construction. But prices are going to dip in some markets a little bit.
Well, I want to say this because most people have let's just be honest, they have no idea what's going on. No. Everybody's reading these bullshit articles. Oh, the market's on fire, it's going up, and then this one is going down. The truth is prices have dropped. Yeah. And in some areas, they've dropped a lot. Like I'm picking up deals 40% off. That's a drop. That is a drop. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, because even I'll get your wholesaling deals, like they'll come across my desk. And I remember even like a year ago or 9 months ago, it would be like maybe one deal every like 3 or 4 days. Now I'm getting like 2 or 3 deals a day coming in, and I'm like, dang, like these are actually really good deals. Have you guys noticed that sellers are becoming a little bit more motivated because they're dealing with the bigger equity cushion? Have you noticed that?
100%. Our whole industry's kind of been landlocked the last couple of years, where buyers not being able to buy and sellers not wanting to sell, but needing to sell. You know what I mean? So I think it's been enough time to where they're like, okay, shit or get off the pot. Are we moving or are we not? Because everybody's been on the sideline waiting to see what's going to happen. Well, it's been over 2 years. We're going into an election. 2025 is around the corner. I think there's going to be major changes coming up.
Yeah. And I think, too, what a lot of people don't realize is people were able to live on their savings, live on their credit cards, and now savings rates are at their lowest they've been in 2 decades, and credit card balances are at the highest they've ever been in history. So people, I feel like a lot of times, like me and you talk all the time, where I'm like, dude, it's been a rough month this month. Like we share that with you, but the average person tries to keep everything behind a wall. Oh, everything's fine. Why they go into massive credit card debt? And so people are finally at that breaking point. Yeah. And I think they have no choice now. I've exhausted my savings. I've maxed out my credit cards. I've taken a 401k loan. Guess it's time to sell the house.
Yeah. And you know what the crazy thing is? Today, 2024, we have like you said, the highest credit card debt in U.S. history, highest ever. During the pandemic, we had the highest savings rate in U.S. history. So how in 4 years can this country go from the highest savings to the highest debt? Well, I know how. They got free money, and then they leveraged the free money with financing, and they bought a bunch of crap.
Yep, and they bought depreciating assets, you know, and I think that's where I'd always, and you and I talk about like investing and all this stuff, and I think one of the things that people have to understand is when you take your approach to investing, right? I look at everything and putting it into 3 buckets, right? You invest in, for me, you can invest in long-term. You can do like index funds, and it's a certain percentage of it. And then I have an allocation of crypto. But then the one thing that is truly the best way with tax reasons and long-term, because you get somebody else to pay your mortgage payment, you get somebody else your value goes up over time, and then you get the tax benefit of it. And that's what you have. And at the end of the day, you look at these people, they are not selling their stock accounts. They're not selling. They've already gone through everything. What they have is the last asset is their real estate asset.
100%. And that's coming up on the chopping block. You know what's different about this too is what most people don't realize, a lot of the people that are hurting are the people who have money.
Yeah.
Because of the overhead and their businesses and all the operations they have to run, but they're not getting the cash flow anymore. Luckily, people had a high savings rate because assets doubled during the pandemic, so people leveraged against their assets, right? So they borrowed, but all that money's running out even for the wealthy. So shit, in my opinion, is about to hit the fan.
Yeah, and I mean, we can even see it. Like you and I were kind of sitting in my office earlier, and you go through any markets that have a very, very high percentage of second homes in that market. Your Naples, Florida, your even like Lake Havasu. You look at all these markets, I'll tell you right now, you're starting to see those. I mean, Naples is flooded with real estate. Why? Everybody wants a second home and they don't have to think about making that payment. The second that they're watching their savings account go down every month, they're like, dude, we're not at the point anymore where we need the second home. Let's get out of that second home. And so that's why I think certain markets where you are still have an affordable like ability to live, like your Pennsylvanias and your Pittsburghs or, you know, in some of those areas. But when you're looking at a lot of these wealthy markets, like I think the last recessionary was a blue collar recession. I think this one is much more of a white collar recession.
100% agree. And that's why I brought it up. I believe this is 100% a white collar recession.
Yeah.
And I think we're at the point where layoffs have started, and I think they're going to get worse. I think we're at the point where owners of companies aren't going to put up with all the bullshit that's happening with people not wanting to work and not showing up. And I think our country has not seen any financial pain since 2010.
Yeah.
So isn't that, think about it, a 30-year-old today or a 28-year-old today has no idea what a recession is really. Like, is this pandemic thing, I mean, that's not, the Great Recession, bro, that was a recession. I remember I had homeowners who were in love with their houses, crying, thank you so much, literally throwing their house keys at me, begging me to take it back.
Yeah.
I remember walking neighborhoods and like just, it was ghost towns in Southern California.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that's going to happen again, but if you look at history, things go up, they go down. They go up, they go down. They go up, they go down. And every time they go up, they go higher than the last time. But we've been going up for 15 years. What's next?
Yeah, and I think like you said before, the good thing is people are sitting on a lot of equity. So what that basically means is people can actually sell their properties to get out from underneath it. They're also put in, majority of people have a low fixed rate loan. And most people I think are in the position where they have a 2.5% rate on their mortgage, right? Well, guess what? Their mortgage payment is a lot less than what it would be to rent that equivalent house. So people have to say, okay, I'm going to sell my house, take that money, and rent not nearly as nice of a house that I was living in, right? But what most people aren't going to realize is you also have so many builders, right? In these new construction markets, these builders, you know, you've built houses, you buy the land, you spend a year to 2 years permitting it, building it. Well, finally, when the asset's done, you're having that carrying cost of that loan. So it's like, shit, let me just get this and blow it off my books for 15% less because I don't want to have to keep paying the 6 or 7% interest rate on it. And so that's why I think you're seeing in a lot of these markets that have a heavy new construction, you're seeing them become more exposed. And if you notice, a lot of them are the pandemic hotspots that everybody fled because builders built a ton of inventory and then people stopped moving.
100%. You know what this is? This was literally, I remember the Great Recession because I've been in this business since 2003. What was the hottest talked about markets back then? It was, I'll never forget, it was Arizona and it was the Inland Empire. Those were the two.
Oh, I lived in the IE at the time. Yeah.
The prices in Arizona and the Inland Empire went up faster and higher than anywhere else. And when it crashed bigger and faster than anywhere else. But guess what it also did? It came back bigger and faster than anywhere else. So I believe all the markets that got really hot in the pandemic, the Nashvilles, the Austins, oh man, on the other side of this, those things are going to go through the roof.
Yeah, and I have one last question that I'll ask you before we wrap up. My question is...
Yeah, she's really my wife.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to know, like, how much did I pay her, right? Yeah, no, she married me.
What is your thought about all the office buildings? So I know you in the commercial world. I mean, you know Manny, you know a lot of these guys that are... Every time I talk to you, you're with some major developer doing something. What are the thoughts? Because we obviously know now with the way the world's changed and between AI and people working remote, there's so much of this office space out there. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And is there any opportunity ever going to be in that space?
Yeah, well, I had an idea around it, but my wife killed the idea because my thought was this. We take these big office buildings and we turn them into, like, you know,
apartments
for dudes.
Yeah.
Bachelor pad, but for married men, you know. And I had this whole concept of going in, and each bachelor pad has your own TV, a keg grater, a fridge, and then common areas with pool tables and ping pong.
I shot it down.
Yeah, she shot it down. So that was
basically like a mistress haven.
You know, here's what I think, and I'm probably gonna piss a lot of people off. I don't give a shit. this whole working from home shit, it don't work. I mean, it works for like a small percentage of industries and people.
It's like tech people that are developers that are antisocial that will do their work no matter what.
It just doesn't work for companies. And the companies, they're going to get tired of this bullshit, and their revenue's dropping. Their market penetration's dropping. Their organization is dropping. And eventually, if you ask me, they're going to say, get back to work. And it's time to come back to the office. Is that going to be this year? Probably not. Next year? Who knows? Maybe 3 years, 2 years, 5 years? We don't know. But I know this. I want people in my office. I've completely changed things again because I tried the virtual stuff. It doesn't work.
It doesn't. I'm the same way. Like we weren't even supposed to be allowed to legally do it. I made everybody show up at my mortgage firm every day, like at our office here. We don't allow anybody to work remote. The only people that work remote are a couple of our developers because they're either overseas or they work opposite hours. But you can't create a culture and you can't measure. And what gets measured gets improved. And I'm sorry. People may be thinking they're working longer working from home, but they're working in 2 to 3 interrupted intervals at a time. They're going and picking up their kids. They're walking to the kitchen. They're going to the gym during the day, and you're not getting their best. And I know people are probably listening to be like, oh, I work from home. I'll tell you what. You come in, you come sit with me in my office, and you work with me. I guarantee you'll have a more productive day in my culture.
Yeah, that's the truth. I mean, you can work from home, but if you're in a job or a position where you got to drive revenue, you can drive exponentially more revenue being in the right environment around the right people.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this. Think about the difference in energy, me being here today with you a couple hours versus us trying to text and FaceTime and communicate from 2 different states.
It's completely different. It's complete, and I think a lot of times people worked from home and they justified it because, oh, you know what, it's lowering my employer's rent costs and all these different other costs. But here's the reality of it. One, it's technology issues too, because now you have all these hacks that you're seeing, all these people. Newsflash, your network at home is not the same security as your network here at the office. No. Then you have privacy rules. Like I, as a customer, would hope to God that all my information, all is staying in a centralized location, and people don't talk about that enough, but there's just so many things to be able to do. And more importantly, I think that most people, what they're going to end up doing is they are going to end up creating, like you look at Google, right? Google has created this environment where you get massages and you get food and you do all these different things. People want to go to work. It stimulates creativity. They bounce ideas off of each other. And why is it that all the most powerful growing companies in the world have a you work in our office environment?
Yeah, because they want to be powerful and profitable.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. So, okay, I'm going to play a game with you right now because you know what pisses me off? The world we live in today, everybody makes excuses on why they can't do something when the truth is they can actually do it. Yep. So I want to play can I be a house flipper game. And I know, Brian, that you flip houses, but I'm going to act like you've never flipped a house. And if you can say yes to these questions, that means you can be a house flipper. And for the listeners, if you can also say yes to these questions, that means you can flip houses too. Question number 1, do you have the ability to either make phone calls, text message, emails, or knock on doors from people that either own houses or sell houses?
Absolutely.
Great. Step 1, that's how you find houses. Step 2, are you able to ask these people if they're looking to sell or if they know anyone looking to sell that are in distress?
Yeah.
Okay, you passed step 3. Now, these people give you a deal. So let's just say you got a deal. Do you have the ability to go on the internet, find a realtor, and ask them to help you analyze the deal and tell you what it will be worth once it's fixed up?
Yes.
Great. Once you do that, do you have the ability to go on the internet, find a contractor, show them pictures of the house, show them pictures of a comparable house, and ask the question, how much to make this house look like that house?
Yes.
Great. One more step. And once you do that, do you have the ability to pick up the phone, call me, for example, present the deal, and if I like it, we buy it?
Yes.
Then you can be a house flipper.
See?
And for all the listeners out there, you can be
easy.
too.
Yeah.
So you don't need money. You don't need talent. Get rid of your excuses. This shit's possible. Get to work, take massive action, and start doing.
Yeah. And so for those of you guys, I want to give everybody, I think, a little bit of a sneak peek of when you are obviously, and we don't have to talk about the new show that's obviously going to be coming out, and it's going to be freaking awesome.
Oh, the flip off, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, we can. Let's talk about that. My ex-wife is going down.
Yeah. So you got to film it because I remember when we were talking about this, and I'm real with you. If I think you tell me something, it's not a good idea. I just be like, dude, that's not a freaking good idea. Run to that. But I think fill everybody in because I'll be honest. One, the production looks insane. And two, I don't think what people realize is how real it is. So why don't you kind of give them the sneak peek and when that drops? 'Cause it's going to be dope.
All right, so the Flip Off should be airing first quarter of 2025. And for those of you that don't know what the Flip Off is, it is a house flipping competition show between myself and my wife, Heather El Moussa, and my ex-wife and her soon-to-be ex-husband, Christina El Muhal Hockstead, and Josh Hall.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, through this process, things didn't work out, and the show's going on.
Yeah. You mean we work out with them?
With them, yeah. Unfortunately, they did separate, which sucks.
Yeah,
I mean, it does suck.
Yeah.
But the show does still go on. But at the end of the day, we're flipping a house against each other, and whoever.
And I have a question. This is what I didn't even realize, so I knew this. You guys actually buy these houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what most people, that's what like, you guys buy these houses, you guys find these deals, and they actually track what you guys do. It is not fake on TV at all. Like I've seen, conversations like when I've been looped in on stuff at network, and they're like, well, okay, we got to track this and we got to track this. I mean, they actually really make it legit.
But that's why people love my first show, Flip or Flop. They love my first show, Flip or Flop, because when I started doing that show, I didn't have money. I didn't know how to flip houses. I was literally learning as the show went on.
Yeah.
And it was a wild experience. I didn't sleep, but in the end, I pulled it off. And this show is going to be a lot of fun. Let's just be real. I did teach Christina everything she knows. It's like Karate Kid. She's over there waxing cars and shit. And she thinks she's going to beat me. Better odds of landing on the moon, Christina. But anyways, they're calling it a competition, but I'm going to beat her real bad.
Yeah. And now what's going to determine who's the winner? Is it who makes the most profit? Is that what it is?
ROI, baby.
Gotcha.
So whoever has the highest return on investment is the winner of the Flip Off. So we are in the middle of competition right now. It's a wild show.
Yeah.
Like, between Heather and Christina and myself and Josh and all the competitiveness and the shit talking, it's going to be fun.
Good. I know. And I think what's really, really cool about it, and I think what made it really real for me is you guys are. I know I've met Christina. You guys are really that competitive in real life.
Oh, yeah, we are. All three of us. All three of us. Like, Heather's competitive.
Oh, she's extremely competitive.
Oh, my God. I lost at rock, paper, scissors the other day to her on camera. I almost had a nervous breakdown. Like, legit nervous breakdown. I lost to both the girls. I almost cried. I was so mad.
Oh, man. Well, you said that's going to be dropping first quarter. And, for those of you guys that you guys have not noticed on his and Heather's socials lately, make sure you guys check them out because your skit idea, what is brilliant. So most people,
I told you about this before I did it.
Yeah, that's why. So I remember we were sitting down. You're like, hey, I have this brilliant idea. I'm going to start making TV quality, bringing it to social media, but in a very funny and humorous way. And it's blown up now. Blown up.
It is. It's like the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. So I told you this, and I told you I'm going to do this because I know it's going to get views, but I know something big will come from it.
Yep.
And guess what? Since we started doing those skits, we're almost at $1 million in brand deals from brands who want us to make skits for them.
And that's the best part because you guys figured it out where nobody wants to watch an ad, right? Nobody wants to watch an ad. But the way you guys do it, it's a funny skit, and you'll just feature something in it, but it's not the point of the video, And so for those of you guys that own businesses or do that, go check out his and Heather's socials because you guys can learn a lot from kind of that strategy and kind of take it and put it to yourself. And everybody obviously knows you, but what is your social media handle that everyone can follow you?
Sure. Instagram is @TheRealTarek El Moussa because someone stole my name. And then, for anyone that wants to partner with me on some real estate, if they're accredited investor, temcapital.co.
And when does your distressed fund start actually taking raising money? I know you're getting ready to launch that.
Yeah, well, we're launching in the next 1 to 2 weeks. But today we actually took in our first commitment because someone heard about it.
Oh, sweet. Well, and I'm telling you guys, I actually originally connected with him because I invested with the deal with you on that too. And this is a fund that I'm going to be looking at. So definitely, I will make sure to, as these deals come up and put it in, I will make sure to bring those deals to you. And thank you, brother. I appreciate you flying in too.
I just want to say one last thing. A lot of people, they've seen me on TV all these years. I have this big brand. I do all these big things, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to tell them, like I tell you, you are literally one of the smartest, if not the smartest son of a bitch I know. You should be so proud of yourself. You're so talented. You're an incredible entrepreneur. You're the smartest son of a bitch. And everybody needs to learn from you, including me.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you coming in, guys. So make sure to give him a follow. And if you guys want to look at some of those investments that are coming out, hit him up or hit me up, and we'll make sure to get you in touch with them. And thanks again for coming in, brother.